ABC Listen. Podcasts, radio, news, music and more.
Hello, ABC News Daily listeners. I'm Erin Park, host of the new podcast series Expanse, Nowhere Man, and we've got a special bonus episode available now. It turns out one of our key characters was not who he said he was.
Maybe he is really Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible.
This looks like a cartoon.
So who was Garrison Gunslinger Sinclair, and why did he die in mysterious circumstances in Mexico? Search and subscribe now to Expanse, Nowhere Man.
It's been an absolutely dramatic day here at the White House in Washington to see that many world leaders, probably unprecedented for a long time anyway.
Mr. Zelenskyy was joined by the European Commission President, the head of NATO, along with the leaders of the UK, France, Germany, Italy and Finland.
We're going to work with Ukraine, we're going to work with everybody, and we're going to make sure that if there's peace, the peace is going to stay long-term. This is very long-term. We're not talking about a 2-year peace and then we end up in this mess again.
We need to stop this war, to stop Russia, and we need support American and European partners, that we are strong people, and we supported President Trump to stop this war, to make a diplomatic way of finishing this war.
Volodymyr Zelenskyy has been to the White House before in what became an infamous encounter with Donald Trump. This time, he took an entourage of European leaders as backup as the US president pushes for a quick end to the war in Ukraine. At the heart of the talks, security guarantees from the US and a possible meeting between Zelenskyy and Putin. Today, a former US ambassador to Ukraine, John Herbst, on why it could actually be a step forward towards peace. I'm Sam Hawley on Gadigal land in Sydney. This is ABC News Daily. John, the last time Zelenskyy sat down with Donald Trump, of course, at the White House, it didn't go so well. This time, he went with a whole heap of European leaders, and it was, safe to say, a smoother affair, wasn't it?
Oh, without a doubt, because circumstances are completely different. In, late February, I think that was the last day of February, President Trump was pursuing a policy which, at least for several weeks, was not based upon a realistic recognition of what Putin was trying to do. And he kind of assumed that the glad words he was hearing from Putin over the phone reflected a desire to make peace as opposed to a desire to keep Trump on the sidelines as Putin tried to take over Ukraine. And if you go back and look, starting in the middle of March, so 2.5 weeks after that unfortunate meeting, the Russians began their first refusals to various Trump ceasefire proposals, which Ukraine accepted. And, we began to see Trump express frustration with the Russians starting in May, and that frustration grew since May.
Well, during this meeting, just to note that Zelenskyy had abandoned his military outfit, of course, which he's worn in solidarity with the soldiers in Ukraine.
You look fabulous in that suit.
I said the same thing.
Yeah, you look good.
I said the same thing.
Yeah, looks good on
I
you.
said someone that
If you look at his outfit, it is a suit,
Yes.
but it looks very similar
Yes.
to the attire before.
It's still black.
So I'd consider that to be an interesting compromise.
Yeah, but Trump would have liked that, wouldn't he? That he was wearing a suit this time. He likes
Of
the
course.
optics.
But look, that was always a tertiary, even a tertiary issue.
Yeah, of course.
It reflected Trump's desire to put pressure on Zelenskyy, nothing more.
All right, well, apparently this is a really interesting part of this meeting. Trump got up and he went out and he called Vladimir Putin to discuss, in part, a meeting with Zelenskyy and Putin, and then another meeting, a trilateral meeting, where Trump would also be present.
Right.
Now, President Zelenskyy was actually asked about this during a press conference afterwards.
We will see the result of bilateral, and then it can be the trilateral. So I said always, so Ukraine will never stop on the way to peace.
What do you think of that? Those meetings, are they actually a viable thing? Will they happen?
Well, they are a sensible next step or next steps. But I agree with you. It's not clear that Putin will actually do this. He's been avoiding or evading Zelenskyy literally once he decided 6 or 12 months into Zelensky's term as president that Zelenskyy was not going to submit to Putin's desires in Ukraine.
So you think it's unlikely that Putin will show up?
Well, I'm not going to say unlikely. I would say it's not certain that he will show up. That's a safe thing to say. You know, I put the odds at something less than 50%, but not at 2%.
All right, well, a must, of course, for Zelenskyy going into this meeting and the European leaders was security guarantees that America would come to Ukraine's defence if Russia agreed to a peace deal but later attacked Ukraine again.
Well, point of fact, I would say that was easily the most important thing we've seen over the past 24 hours. And it was actually, you might say, anticipated by Trump's statement on the plane to Alaska that, you know, security guarantees may be something that's necessary. First time we've heard anything like that from President Trump. And then, you know, a more forward-leaning position today.
There'll be a lot of help. When it comes to security, there's going to be a lot of help. It's going to be good. They are first line of defense because they're there. They're Europe.
А саме захист, ми починаємо з нього і починаємо працювати.
It is important that the United States makes a clear signal that they will be among the countries that will help to coordinate and also will participate in security guarantees for Ukraine. I believe this is a big step forward.
Я вважаю, що це великий крок вперед.
So that to me is a great positive. But of course, the Russians had regularly rejected the notion that European troops would appear in Ukraine. And they rejected that again today. You know, that was a clear important element, that was and remains a clear important element in security for Ukraine.
In fact, the head of NATO, Mark Rutte, he told Fox News after the meeting that troops on the ground weren't even discussed.
Troops on the ground, is that a possibility?
We have not discussed that at all today. So that will be part of the discussions which will now start. We will try to bring them to a next stage of understanding over the coming days and weeks, of course. I'm not sure that we can solve all the details.
Is that surprising?
That is surprising. I'm not certain what to make of it, but it's conceivable they could have talked about this without actually getting into that detail.
And the so-called coalition of the willing, that includes the UK and France and others, they're suggesting that they could deploy troops to Ukraine as part of a security guarantee. That really angers Putin, doesn't it? The idea of Western foreign troops on the ground in Ukraine.
That's correct, because Putin's aim remains to take effective political control of the country, which means either changing the government or seizing 70% or 80% of the country, including all the cities along the Dnipro River, including the Black Sea coast, and leaving a rump Ukraine in the west.
So what is a security guarantee for Ukraine if it doesn't involve troops? What would we be looking at?
Well, that's hard to imagine. I mean, there are things that could be done, making sure that the air is controlled by Western forces with Ukraine, able to shoot at Russian troops on the ground if they go beyond certain points, but that nothing can substitute ultimately for having some force on the ground.
Well, of course, Putin has long been opposed to Ukraine joining NATO. I mean, they've been discussing Article 5, you know, NATO's treaty, Article 5. Right. What does that all mean? Just explain that.
Well, I mean, Article 5 is the portion of the NATO Charter which says if one country is attacked, all countries will play a role in its defense. So, and Article 5 is the reason why everyone wants to join NATO. So if you truly provide Article 5 type guarantees to Ukraine, that is a huge deterrence to further Russian aggression. And that is the ne plus ultra of security guarantees. So that's why I say that's clearly the most important elements that's emerged over the past day or so.
Well, on the ground in Ukraine, John, it seems locals and officials are pretty sceptical about these talks. What have you been hearing? What have people been telling you, people you know in Ukraine?
I know that many Ukrainians were deeply concerned after the summit in Anchorage. I believe that they are encouraged by what happened between Zelensky and Trump with all the other European leaders. But encouraged is not the same as saying confident, because we've seen before President Trump move from one direction to another, and sometimes relatively quickly. So the question is, are the good things that were spoken today an indication of where the process and President Trump will be a week or 2 weeks from now? So that remains a question.
But what does it say that just before the meeting began, Russia was attacking major Ukrainian cities, killing at least 10 people, including a child?
Well, it means that their effort to bomb Ukraine's submission continues. And I think that's a reason to be concerned about President Trump allowing Putin to cross his deadline without consequences.
All right. What about those people, John, living in the regions that Putin wants to hold in Ukraine? What happens to them if he succeeds in this?
There's no question that that's a disaster for them. And that's why Trump's goal, in my opinion, is to achieve a durable peace. And I think that's a good enough outcome. But it includes the tragic element that you are consigning Ukrainians to live under dreadful Russian oppression. That's why I would not call it a just peace. But a durable peace, international relations can be pretty rough. Sometimes people accept a durable peace as opposed to a just peace because that's the best that they can achieve.
So do you think this peace can actually be achieved? Zelensky wants a ceasefire, so negotiations before a peace deal. Putin doesn't want that. He wants to skip a ceasefire and just come up with the plan where Ukraine gives up land to Russia.
Right.
And Zelensky has always said he's not going to do that. So where's the peace deal here?
Well, Zelensky has often, I won't say always, but often, going back to even before Trump took office, after he won the election, he has often demonstrated a willingness to make territorial concessions on a de facto basis in exchange for security guarantees. And this has always been kind of, not the specific security guarantees, but security measures plus territorial compromise has always been the Trump approach, always meaning for the last 8 or 9 months, going back before our elections. So everything we're hearing today has actually been discussed in some fashion in the past. But the key, in my opinion, has been even Trump's goal of a durable peace is in doubt because Putin doesn't want a durable peace. Putin wants control of Ukraine. So that means we ultimately have to put serious pressure on the Kremlin to demonstrate they're not going to get ultimate control of Ukraine.
All right, well, John, we know Donald Trump wants to end the war. He likely does, of course, want to see the end to all the bloodshed, but he also wants a Nobel Peace Prize, right?
Right.
Do you think he can achieve this aim to end this war?
If he uses all the powers at his control, he can achieve a durable peace by making life miserable for an aggressive Kremlin. In other words, if he begins to put the serious pressure on Putin he's talked about, major advanced weapons heading to Ukraine, paid for by someone else, not us, tougher economic sanctions on Russia and its trading partners, Putin would be in serious trouble. Now, these things would not bring the result we need in 2 months or 4 months. Putin has wagered successfully so far on outlasting all the Western leaders who've opposed his war on Ukraine going back 11 years. So Trump would have to demonstrate a willingness to persevere, certainly for 7 or 8 months, maybe for well over a year. But the cost to us of doing that is tiny. The cost to the Russians is enormous.
All right. And what about the people of Ukraine, John? You know them. Do you think they should have some hope now?
I think that they should not give up hope. I think that if Trump truly wants a durable peace, and I think he does, and if he truly wants a Nobel Peace Prize, and I think he does, he will have to move in this direction. It's coming much more slowly than I would like, but it may well come. Now, notice I'm even here a little bit tentative, but I think ultimately the different factors at play will move him in that direction.
John Herbst is a former US ambassador to Ukraine and senior director of the Atlantic Council's Eurasia Centre. This episode was produced by Sydney Peed. Audio production by Sam Dunn. Our supervising producer is David Cody. I'm Sam Hawling. Thanks for listening.